This is Gemara in Kesubos Daf Pei Beis Amid Aleph. This is the daf for the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Apologies, a bit lateness on the dafim due to Yontif. But once again, even though the month of Elul has concluded, we like to donate and dedicate a few more shiurim as lezchot, aliyat, neshama, Vesta Reyzel, Mair as we enter into a new year of Daf Yomi. We begin with a tefillah that b'siyata d'shmaya. We should all continue learning together and being kind of one daf after next, and all the learning should bring as the Reyzel Basar Meir to a higher place in Gan Eden Shel Maila. So holding on, babies of an Aleph, we're in the middle of discussing the Yavam in a situation that a man dies, leaving over his wife, and he has a brother. So the woman falls to Yibam to this man's brother. What is the brother's relationship to his now deceased brother's estate? So boy, Ahu Gavra, there was a man, before we get to there, we're actually going to have a little bit of a story regarding this din. There was a man in which Yavama fell in Masa Mechasya. Again, we'll get to the din about the estate in a moment, but first a story about Yibam. So the younger brother wanted to passel him from Minei, from doing Yibam. We know that if one brother gives a get, then no one's allowed to do Yibam. So the younger brother was going to give this woman a get, so that no one is able to do Yibam. Amar Lei, the older brother said, Mai daitach, what's the reason that you want to passel me from doing Yibam? If it's because you want to get the properties of our now deceased brother, and you're nervous that if I go and do Yibam, I'm going to get the properties. So the older brother told his younger brother, you don't have to go and get the property by way of passing from Yibam, but rather I'll split it with you. Amar Lei. So the younger brother responds, Mistafina, Davda Ali, Davda B'Madisa Rama. I'm nervous you're going to do for me like they did in B'Madisa Rama, which was a story in which a brother said that he'll split the estate with his brother, but then subsequently he backed out after doing Yibam. Amar Lei, so the older brother says, if you really want, I'll give it to you right now. Right now, I'll already give you the estate, half of the estate of our deceased brother, so you don't go and give a get, and I could do Yibam. Says the Gemara, Amar Mar Bar Ravashi, after got the Chazar Rav Dimi, even though when Rav Dimi came, Amar Rav Yechon, Amar Chaver Leich Umeshayich Parazu. Someone says to his friend, go and do a Meshicha, go and pull this cow, and it's only going to be acquired to you after 30 days, meaning do the Maisa Kinyan, do the act of acquisition on the animal now, but you're actually going to acquire the animal only after 30 days. What's the halacha? Says Rav Dimi, name Rav Yechon, Lachar Lamed Yoim Gana, Va'afilu Aymedes Ba'agam. After 30 days, the halacha is that they are kaina, and even if it is standing in an agam, the halacha is that even if the animal is not available at the moment, meaning not there, it's elsewhere, the person acquires the animal. Why? For the simple reason that they did a Maisa Kinyan. Explain. So ask the Gemara, I don't understand. You're telling me that if the brother says that you acquire it now, you get it right now. But we see in a case over here in which they did a Maisa Kinyan now, and you're only getting it after 30 days. They only get it after 30 days? Says the Gemara, Hasam biyadai, Hacha lav biyadai. Explains the Gemara, no. Over there in that case, it's biyadai, it's in the giver's power to do the Maisa Kinyan now. Whereas Hacha, but in our case, lav biyadai, it's not in his power to give the Maisa Kinyan right now. Meaning, so Rav Ashi is explaining that Rav Dimi came and said in the name of Rav Yechon, even though you're trying, the older brother is saying, I'm going to give you the field now, we're going to split it right now, it does not work. Because in the case of the cow, when he says, do the Maisa Kinyan now, and you're going to acquire it after 30 days, the halacha is that he, yes, does acquire it. The reason is because in that case, he's able to give him the cow right now, whereas in our case, the older brother is not able to give the cow right now, and therefore, It's not going to work if the older brother says that I'm giving you half of the estate right now. Still, it is not considered an act of acquisition. And if the older brother would eventually want, he's allowed to back out of it. Says the Gemara, asked the Gemara one second where Rabbi came and he said to Rabbi Yechanan, he said, Loikani, he does not acquire, meaning in the case of the cow. You're differentiating and saying that in the case of the cow, there's Yasa Maisa Kinyin, but Rabbi said in Rabbi Yechanan there is not. Says the Gemara, Loi Kasha, Had Amar Le Kini Me'achshav, Had Loi Amar Le Kini Me'achshav. One is when he said, you're acquiring it Me'achshav Ulachar Lamid Yoim. In that case, he yes acquires the cow, because since he can give it to him right now, he gets it after 30 days. But if he does not say Me'achshav Ulachar Lamid Yoim, he just says Lachar Lamid Yoim, then he does not acquire it. Continues the Gemara. And of course, the reason why the Gemara brought in this story is because of the case it was dealing with this situation of Yibam and dealing with the brother's estate. And similarly, the Gemara continues, Ba'i minei me'ula. They asked from Ula, or about 20 lines down, Pei Beis Amud Aleph, first word in line is minei. They asked from Ula, Yavam v'acha chilek ma'u. What is the story if someone does Yibam, and after he does Yibam, then he wants to give away the properties? Meaning, a moment ago we just said that the older brother cannot give away the properties before he does Yibam. But I asked the Gemara, what about after he does Yibam? After he does Yibam, is he allowed to give away part of the deceased brother's estate to the other brothers? So answers Ula, no, nothing doing. Lo yasa v'lo yiklum. He's not allowed to give away anything. Ask the Gemara further, chilek v'achach Yibam. But what happens if he first gives them away and then he does Yibam out? What's the din? Lo yasa v'lo yiklum. So both cases, whether he first gave away the estate, whether he first did Yibam, in both scenarios, the Gemara is paskening that the brother is not able to give away his deceased brother's estate. Meaning, even though when he marries his deceased brother's wife, he does Yibam, he gets rights to that estate is that which is eventually will pay for the Kesubos of his now wife, but he's not able to give away the estate. Not able to give away the property of his deceased brother. Asks the Gemara, Maskav la Ravashi, Sheshes. As for Sheshes is a very simple question, which I'm sure is bothering a lot of people. In this scenario, when he does Yibam, and then he tries to give away the property of his brother, it's meaningless. Do you have to tell me the case in which he first tries to give it away and then does Yibam? Of course it doesn't work. Answers the Gemara, you're right, but Shnei Maisim Abu. There were two different stories, and in each story he paskin what the din was. But it's true that there's no additional chiddush in the second case, which we did not learn in the first case. Kiyasa Rav in Amar Reish Lakish. Rav came. He said the name of Reish Lakish. Indeed, like Ula said. And we continue by quoting the Mishnah. We're 10 lines to the bottom of Pei Beis Amud Aleph. Said the Chachamim that the produce that is attached to the ground, it belongs to the Yavam. Explains the Gemara of Amai. What is the reason that you're telling me it belongs to the Yavam? We know that the entire estate of the deceased brother is Achra, is considered security and tied up for the Kesubos. Reish Lakish, you're right, Tani Shalah. You have to change one simple letter in the Mishnah of the Vav to the Hey, Shalai to Shalah. But of course, that's a world of a difference. Then now what happens, it makes it that it belongs to her and not to him. We continue by quoting the Mishnah, 7 lines to the bottom of the Abi, that the halacha is, and hopefully the next Gemara should sound very familiar, it's a bit repetitive from that which we learned in Mesach Zivamis, that if someone gets married, if someone does Yibam, the Yavama, is like his wife for all regards. Says the Gemara, Lamaya Chusa, to what halacha are you referring? Rav Chanina Loimar, that teaches us, Shemagar Shabigat, he's able to divorce her, Umachzira, and he's able to remarry her. Asks the Gemara 4 lines on the bottom. Megarsha beget? Pshita! Of course he could divorce her with a get. What else? What do you think? What is the chiddush? What is the novelty? Explains the Gemara, I would have thought V'yimma merachmana. It says in the Torah, V'yimma. It says in the Torah that when someone's a brother is nifter, leaving over his wife, he does yibum with his wife. So you would think, maybe she still has the status of a yavama even after you do yibum, and therefore loiteski la beget elo bechalitza. And therefore, maybe if you now want to divorce her, it would not suffice with only a get. Maybe the mechanics of severance of this marriage are not simply with a get, but rather it has to be with chalitza as well. Kamash Mala, and therefore explains our Mishnah that she's considered a full-fledged married woman, and the way to divorce her is simply with a get. And then the next part is Machzira. They're able to remarry her. Ask the Gemara further again. Pshita, that's obvious. What is the novelty to tell me you're allowed to remarry this woman? Of course you could. Explains the Gemara as we turn over to Bebeis and Bebeis. I would have thought that in the case where one's brother is nifter, he has a mitzvah to marry his brother's wife. Mitzvah d'Rabi Rachmana alei avda. He fulfilled the mitzvah. V'hashta, but now that he divorced her, take him alei b'isr ishazach. We know there's an issa d'oraisa to marry your brother's wife. Whenever there is yibum, that's the old creation of yibum. The yibum gets rid of the isser, the transgression, the lav of marrying one's brother's wife. But maybe one would think that after he divorces her, the original isser is back in place. Kamash Malan, so explains the Gemara that no, they're even able to remarry her. Ask Gemara, but why not? But maybe indeed you're not able to remarry her. Amar Kra, it says in the Torah of Lacha, Loyli Ishi, you take her as a wife. Kivin Shalacha, Naseh Kishtoi. Once you marry her, it's as if she's like your wife, and therefore there's nothing to worry about. You could divorce her like a regular woman with a get and no chalitza, and able to remarry her, and there's no worry about the iser eishes ach. And we continue quoting the Mishnah, 5 lines down. There's one caveat whenever one does yibam. That where does the ksuba come from? The ksuba comes from the estate of the original husband of the deceased brother. Ask the Gemara, "My time, what's the reason?" Isha hiknulay minashamayim. Says the Gemara, you know why? Because this woman is a wife that was acquired to him from heaven. He didn't necessarily choose to marry this woman. And therefore, the ksuba doesn't come from him, but comes from the deceased brother's estates. But the Gemara speaks out very importantly, but let's say she does not have a ksuba from the first one. Let's say the first husband died and there's no estate left over. The halach is, and this new husband does have to provide her with a ksuba. Why? So she should not be easy to divorce. We know that the whole invention of the ksuba was that one does not just simply divorce his wife, and that there's he's held accountable. So too says the Gemara, if the deceased brother's estate has nothing, the new husband, the yavam, has to provide her with a ksuba. Continues the Gemara, 10 lines down, Beis, quoting the Mishnah, Ksuba Seich. Oh, Yavam cannot tell Yavama, here's your ksuba, it's on the table. And similarly, a regular man can't tell his wife, your ksuba is on the table. Ask the Gemara, my v'chein, what's v'chein? And so too, it applies to a regular woman. When it comes to a Yavama, the Mishnah said the Yavam should not say your ksuba is on the table. V'chein, and similarly, you shouldn't say the same thing to a regular wife. What would the difference be? Explains the Gemara, I would have thought, in the case of Yibum, the husband, the Yavam, does not write that all his properties are mishubid, are sitting and waiting to pay up the ksuba. So therefore, I would think that if the Yavam goes and takes all the properties, takes all the cash, puts it on the table, and says, here's your ksuba, so then that could come to evil, as we learned yesterday in the previous daf. Then that could come to a fight, because she thinks he's trying to divorce her by putting the money up for the ksuba on the table. Avol hacha, but by a regular marriage, by a regular marriage, the husband writes to his wife that your ksuba will be paid from all my estate. So I would think some chadaita that even if the husband goes and says your ksuba is on the table, I would think still the woman is saimech das because she knows he doesn't really want to divorce because all his properties are mishubid. So kamash malan, that's the chiddush of the Mishnah. That similarly, by a regular wife, a person should not say lo yamer la ariksu basech munachas ala shulchan. And we continue by the 2 dots, 10 lines down. Gersha in la yel ksubasa. If after yibam he divorces her, she only gets a ksuba. Explains the Gemara Gersha in la gersha loy. If he divorces her, then she gets her ksuba. And then what happens? The Yavam gets the rest of the brother's estate, as he is the brother's inheritor, he is the brother's brother, and therefore he sells the estate or does what he wants with it. It's his. But if he does not divorce her, then he's not allowed to sell his brother's estate. Why not? Because the entire estate is sitting and waiting to potentially pay for the ksuba. Kamash Malon Kid Rav Abba. So the Mishnah teaches us, like Rav Abba, who taught us on Pei Aleph Amid Aleph, that the only way you're allowed to sell your brother's properties after Yibam is if you divorce the Yavama, then remarry her. Because if not, you have no rights to the properties from the fact that they're all mishubed to her ksuba. And we continue quoting the Mishnah 15 lines down. The first one in line is Mash Malan Echzira Ari Kichol Anashim in Ksubasa. If you remarry her, she's like a regular woman. She gets only her first ksuba. Explains the Gemara Echzira Maika Mashlan. What's the chiddush that if you remarry her, she only gets her first ksuba? Tanina, we already learned in the Mishnah. Hamigari says she isha machzira amanas ksuba isha machzira. Someone divorces a woman and remarries her. It is assumed that he remarries her based on the premise of the first ksuba, whatever that was. So what's the chiddush of the Mishnah with regard to a yavam being the same din? Explains the Gemara. I would have thought when it comes to his wife, she is the one that he originally wrote the ksuba to her. So therefore, if he remarries her, we assume it's based on the original pretenses. By Yavama, he's not the one that originally wrote the ksuba, it was his brother. So maybe in a scenario which he does even, he divorced her, then he remarries her. Maybe the ksuba is from him. Kamash Malon, no. So therefore, our Mishnah teaches us it's not true that even the case of Yavamu who remarries, her ksuba still goes by the original deceased brother's estate like it was originally. And we're going to conclude the parak, says the Gemara, quoting the Mishnah. Originally, what would happen? They write for Besula 200 zuz, a woman who was never married, a woman who was married 100 zuz, and their properties of the husband were not put up as a security for the ksuba. And women did not want to get married because they didn't feel that they were secure in gaining their ksuba. And he made a takana that all the properties of the husband are achrai, are pledged to the ksuba. Then the woman felt secure that even if her husband's cash flow runs out, but his properties are all achray for the ksuba, and then they got married. Says the Gemara, Tanina mihachi, we learned the same in the Bryce. Women didn't get married. So what do? So the Bryce gives us a little bit more of the details. So they made a takana that the husband should put the cash in her father's house. So now she'll feel like, okay, the cash is waiting for me. Vadayin. But still, when he got angry at his wife, he would tell her, go take your ksuba and get out of her here. Meaning, it was too easy for a man to divorce his wife because the cash was sitting and waiting. So his kinus, they made another takana, 2 lines in the white lines. They made another takana that the cash should stay in the husband's house. As she rose, so the wealthy woman would take the cash and make out of it baskets of gold and silver. Aniya is the poor woman. Would make out of it a bathroom. They would make out of them items that they themselves would use. But still, meaning at some level it would help, because now the items are in the husband's house and they're usable items. He wouldn't necessarily just want to get rid of them, But still, when he would get a bit more angry, he would say, take your item and get out of here. Take your basket, take your urinal, get out of here. And finally, the final stage was like the Mishnah quoted, that Shimon ben Shatach made a takana, that all the husband's properties are achray for the ksuba. We should do an incredible chazar of this 8th parak. What a fabulous way to start the year, concluding a parak. And as we began, we'll conclude with a bracha. And we should continue learning many, many more dafim, prakim, mesechtais, and ultimately shas together.